I am beginning to face the dire consequences of my excessive spending. Who would have thought that a young man, just under 2 years out of college, would be burdened with debts of over 100,000 yuan? After graduating in 2020 with a monthly income of only 2,000 yuan, which was insufficient for my expenses, I resorted to the Huabei platform to barely scrape by. Yet, driven by desires to buy a motorcycle, a car, and to cover dating expenses, I followed my friends into the world of credit cards. I kept using them, accruing substantial interest, naively believing I could manage the repayments. I began a cycle of paying off one card with another, but eventually, my credit cards were frozen, making it impossible to pay back my debts. With no other options left, I turned to the Fenkila platform, despite its frighteningly high interest rates, and continued borrowing to pay off my debts, all the while hiding this from my family. Now I find myself owing several 100,000 yuan. I was driving earlier and suddenly lost control of my emotions. I had to stop for about 10 minutes to calm down. Today, I have to repay several debts. One is a court-ordered payment of 10,000 yuan this month. Another is a high-interest loan from someone, also due at the end of the month. In fact, there's an even larger amount of over 300,000 yuan due today, and I've been trying to find a way to pay it. These last few days have been exhausting, staying up until 3 a.m., then charging my car for the next day, only getting to sleep at 4 a.m. Today, unable to repay, I called the debt collectors, pleading for a few days' grace. After much persuasion, they agreed, giving me some relief.
A netizen, burdened with debts exceeding 18 million yuan, tearfully recounts for the camera the hardships of repaying debts. My husband used to be in the catering business, making good money with the first 2 outlets. We even earned during the first year of the pandemic. Perhaps getting a bit greedy, we expanded during the pandemic, taking over more expensive retail locations, which led to continuous losses. We also bought a commercial property that turned into a failed project. My husband used to earn at least 400,000 yuan a year, and I made over 100,000 yuan, but now we're struggling to make ends meet. At our worst, we only had 48 yuan in our account. With 17 credit cards and a total limit of over 2.8 million yuan, I've been juggling them for 3 years, accruing over 1 million yuan in just interest. Today, I'm not seeking sympathy, but sharing my debt experience to share as a cautionary tale. After the 2019 pandemic, to sustain my supply chain and fresh food store, I began applying for credit cards, managing 17 of them over 3 years. I didn't want to give up, opting for installment payments and minimum payments, but eventually, even the minimum became unpayable. I even borrowed from all online loan platforms. Now my debt snowballs, with monthly interest reaching 30 to 40,000 yuan. The debt hasn't decreased, only increased. I found out that the installment fees on my credit cards were 4 times the interest of rotating the cards, and the annual interest rates of many online loans reached 36%. Looking back, I was foolish and ignorant to apply for installments and online loans without any risk awareness, thinking I could repay all my debts and that the pandemic would soon pass. Now I'm constantly receiving debt collection calls. I hope those watching this video won't make the same mistakes. In the video, the lady uses her own experience to advise everyone against using installment payments and borrowing from online lending platforms. Since the outbreak of COVID-19 in China, the nation's economy has taken a severe hit. Not only have foreign investments withdrawn, but massive layoffs have also occurred in both state-owned and private enterprises. Unemployment in China is extremely serious, with many unable to repay loans, leading to a sharp increase in default rates for mortgages and personal loans.
I owe 40,000 yuan on Huabei, 80,000 on Jebei, 60,000 on Fenki, 100,000 on MyBank, 55,000 to Meituan, 45,000 on JD Baitiao, 50,000 on Weili Dai, 150,000 on China Merchants Finance, and 70,000 on 360. I've borrowed from almost every online loan platform, along with 12 credit cards, totaling nearly 1.7 million yuan in debt. After business failure, I maxed out all my cards, then juggled them, borrowing from relatives and friends, eventually selling my car and mortgaging my house. Finally, I resorted to high-interest online loans.
The Financial Times reports that since the onset of COVID-19, the number of borrowers in China has skyrocketed to a record high. From 743,000 defaulters in 2020, the number surged to 6.4 million in 2021 and further to approximately 7.2 million in 2022. This data underscores the severity of China's economic downturn and the obstacles to its full recovery. According to Chinese court data, there are currently 8.5 million people blacklisted by regulatory agencies for failing to repay mortgages, business loans, and other debts, with ages ranging from 18 to 59. In less than 3 years, over 2.8 million people have become bad debtors, accounting for about 1% of China's labor force, significantly higher than the 5.7 million during the early pandemic lockdown in 2020.
How many defaulters have been added this month? On November 1st, the official count was around 8.49 million. By November 30th, it rose to 8.54 million, an increase of around 47,000 people. This is not a large number, averaging less than 1,600 new defaulters per day. But there's a special situation. The China Enforcement Information Disclosure website stopped updating on November 6th, resuming only on the 19th. Many default cases must have been processed during this period, hence the modest overall increase. I predict the rise in December will exceed 100,000.
The Financial Times also notes that the surge in defaulters adds to the challenges faced by the world's second-largest economy and undermines consumer confidence, a key driver of global demand. This has also drawn international attention to the lack of personal bankruptcy laws in China, making it difficult to alleviate the impact of surging debts on the financial and social sectors. In China, defaulters and blacklisted individuals result from creditors such as banks filing cases against borrowers for non-repayment. Under Chinese law, those on the blacklist face numerous economic restrictions, including bans on buying flight tickets, making payments through mobile apps like Alipay and WeChat, holding any government positions, and even driving on toll roads. Being blacklisted by the Chinese government can make life increasingly difficult, entailing dozens of restrictions. Jane Zhang, the owner of an advertising company in Jiangxi province, described her panic when the court in May barred her from using WeChat to buy food for her child. I thought my son would starve. I had no cash and relied on WeChat Pay for daily shopping. Although the court said my life could return to normal if I cleared my debts, how can I earn money to repay them with so many restrictions? From both personal and economic perspectives, these control measures further hinder economic recovery and suppress consumer confidence. Nationally, the increase in bad debtors intensifies the debt crisis, evident not only in the collapsed real estate sector and local government debts, but also in increasing credit card debts and the number of bank foreclosures. A Weibo user under the name Mingo Yetan published 3 sets of related statistical data. According to the third set, as of August 5, 2023, 7.9 million enforcement cases had been closed out of the total 9.6 million, leaving about 1.7 million yet to be initiated. The user mentioned, considering the 8.4 million defaulters reported on September 25, 2023, it's highly probable that the number will reach 10 million this year. This means that approximately 1 in every 140 people in China is a defaulter. Excluding the elderly and children under 22, the number among adults is alarmingly high. To lower the rising number of defaulters, the Chinese government has employed various tactics. Recently, mainland netizens shared videos showing local government agencies using LED outdoor screens to publicly disclose personal information of local court defaulters, attracting nationwide attention. The information revealed includes defaulters' photos, addresses, and ID numbers, with some courts even using vehicle-mounted LED screens and broadcast in communities, drawing crowds in what netizens dub as parading through the streets to intimidate the public and reduce the number of bad debtors. But these measures are of little use to people at their wits' end, as the underlying economic problems behind this phenomenon remain unresolved. The personal debt crisis among Chinese consumers erupted following a surge in borrowing, closely linked to the Chinese government's irresponsible lending practices. Data from the National Institution for Finance and Development in Beijing shows that as of September this year, household debt as a percentage of GDP reached almost 65%, nearly doubling from a decade ago. Dan Wang, chief economist for China at Hang Seng Bank, shares that the sharp increase is not just a cyclical issue, but also a structural one. He explains, as the Chinese government doesn't change its lending patterns, the situation could worsen. Moreover, the surge in bad debtors is closely tied to the state of China's economy. Another reason Chinese people fail to repay loans is income issues. Affected by the real estate crash, the Chinese government authorities have repeatedly issued notices for governments at all levels to tighten their belts and prepare for hard times. Along with a large number of private enterprises going bankrupt and laying off workers, many places in China have seen massive layoffs of non-staff personnel in government and public institutions, and even some government departments have conducted covert staff reductions. Many people holding mortgages and car loans from private and public sectors risk defaulting due to job loss and financial struggles. Secondly, high housing prices have always been the biggest burden for the Chinese people and a significant reason for the increasing number of bad debtors. Recent data released by the People's Bank of China shows that as of October 2023, the total amount of residential mortgages stood at 47.5 trillion yuan, with other short-term consumer loans at 10.3 trillion yuan, short-term business loans at 10.3 trillion yuan, and medium and long-term business loans at 11.5 trillion yuan. Adding up these loans, the total debt of Chinese households is approximately 79.6 trillion yuan, with mortgage consumption being the absolute majority. Other data, including short-term consumer loans, short-term business loans, and medium and long-term business loans, do not come close to the amount of mortgage consumption. Comparing recent official data on changes in medium and long-term consumer loans among Chinese residents, it can be seen that the total amount of mortgages has barely grown since 2023. Compared to the annual growth rates of 20 to 30% before 2023, the current year-on-year growth rate of mortgage totals has plummeted to less than 3%, the lowest since record-keeping began, and this rate has been maintained for a year. The decline in mortgage amounts means that no more people are taking on decades of labor to bear mortgages and benefit everyone in the chain, leading to the system stalling. Clearly, this is not just a debt chain issue in one or two cities, but a problem in the entire Chinese mortgage debt chain. Residents are either unwilling or unable to take on more debt. The stagnation of the debt chain signifies a significant risk of economic slowdown in China. Despite data from the People's Bank of China showing that as of October 2023, Chinese residents' total deposits reached 134 trillion yuan, averaging 100,000 yuan per capita, an increase of nearly 19 trillion yuan from 2022 with a growth rate of 16%. The extremely uneven distribution of these deposits prevents them from reaching those who truly need them. Mounting debt with high interest rates only enriches the wealthy and impoverishes the debtors. The increasing number of people bearing debts and the inability to resolve them push Chinese household debts to the brink of collapse. Affected by the economic downturn, the real estate crash, and the collapse of a large number of private enterprises like Zhongzhi Group, a wave of middle-class impoverishment has recently erupted in China, with many middle-class individuals becoming impoverished overnight.
I've witnessed 5 friends return to poverty. One got over 10 million yuan from relocation compensation and bought a large flat in Shanghai's Bund, which unfortunately became an unfinished project, leaving him with nothing. Another friend made 1.5 million yuan from short video sales and invested 1.2 million in a supermarket, which barely breaks even and is now on the verge of closure. A third friend, a live streamer, made over 2 million selling men's clothes, lent 2 million to a close friend who then failed in business and is now embroiled in lawsuits. Another invested in cryptocurrencies, becoming liable for over 8 million yuan borrowed for a friend who fled. The fifth, a university teacher, invested all earnings in stocks, still living in a small 30 square meter apartment, with the stock value continuously dropping. To go from poor to rich, one must know not just how to earn money, but also how to keep it.
Netizens joke the people who are doing well in China right now are not those who earn a lot of money, but ordinary people with fixed incomes and no debts.